Hi, welcome back to my channel if you're new. So in this video today, we're going to be talking about how renter's insurance works. Now, before we start, I've had my fair share of house fires, too many to be exact. And that's partially my motivation for making this video for you today. Well, that and the practically 100.9 million people in the US who actually rent. Now, with the sheer number of people who rent in the US, how many of them do you think have renter's insurance? Just in case something fishy happens in their place. Or some of their belongings get damaged. 57%. Like 57% out of 100. As you may have guessed, that's not a lot. Like, that's a little over half of the population of people who rent actually have protection over their property. And get this, before 2020, that number was much lower. In 2019, it was nearing about 46% to 48% of people actually have protection over their property. So about 2 weeks ago, I had a fire in my apartment, and honestly, seeing parts of my life, parts of my belongings just burnt to a char, burnt to a freaking crisp, like crispy treats, it made me cry. And like I said, this wasn't my first experience with this. And it's just something about one day seeing all your things in the exact place that you left them, and then coming back and everything's just in ruins. But on the bright side, I had renter's insurance, and I was able to file a claim and get a lot of my things covered. But let me tell you something, between you and me, I probably wouldn't have got renter's insurance if it wasn't required by my landlord, which is something that we'll talk about later on in this video. But I'm thankful that I did. And I think reflecting on my reluctance to get it from the beginning, because I think oftentimes we have this perspective of our lives. We see our lives through rose-colored glasses of like, oh, that'll never happen, da 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 da. Even though we see tragedy every day and we hear about it, I think to some extent we become desensitized to it, or believing that, oh, that won't be me, or, you know, I have time, and da 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 da, and like extending ourselves grace that isn't promised or allotted to us. And I did the exact same thing, and the only reason I didn't was because it was required. Now, I won't bore you with the parental lecture of blah blah, you never know what's gonna happen, and da 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 da. You never, you want to be prepared just in case something happens, and da da da. Tomorrow's not guaranteed to you, even though I just did. But that's only because I care. But I do want to get into the meat and potatoes of exactly what is renter's insurance, do you need it, and how does it work? So renter's insurance, what is it? It protects you against three things. It protects you against damage of property, liability in the instance that there's an accident and maybe you have to be taken to court for it. It'll cover court fees. And the third thing is temporary relocation, just in case your unit or property that you're renting becomes inhabitable due to circumstances. Now, your landlord / property manager does have insurance on the property, but this doesn't protect you or your belongings. It only protects damages that occur to the property and to infrastructure regarding the property. But you have to have your own separate renter's insurance to protect and cover your belongings. Now, renter's insurance covers a couple of different things, such as furniture, appliances, kitchenware, bedding, electronics, things of that sort. Anything that you've bought, that you've brought into the rental unit that has gotten damaged due to occurrences. Please see screen for remaining elements. Now you may be wondering, what isn't covered with renter's insurance? Two things not covered with renter's insurance is natural disasters such as floods or earthquakes. Especially if you live in an area where that is prevalent, you might have to find other options for coverage / have some add-ons. Just explore your options in those cases. So one of these instances, like I spoke about before, is if your landlord / property manager makes it a requirement upon you signing your lease that you have to provide proof of renter's insurance. Now, why, you may ask? For the money, of course. So this ensures that your landlord doesn't have to take on the financial burden in the case that something does happen in your unit. It avoids you having to take them to court and sue for your belongings, which of course, litigation is expensive and quite frankly time consuming and a shit show. So landlords would appreciate being able to avoid that if at all possible. So the second instance is if you choose to have renter's insurance for your own protection, which will bring us into the next point. What are the criteria, requirements, kind of checklists that you should have when determining if you should have renter's insurance for yourself? The straightforward answer, probably yes, maybe no. So let's talk about the probably yes. You should not get renter's insurance if 1, you're made of money. 2, you only have a matchbox and maybe a rusty toothbrush to your name, so you ain't got much. And 3, you have a hamster wheel full of cash, so you could cover all of your damages if anything happens. You're basically set for life. Now, if option 1 or 3 applies to you, hit me up. I just want to talk. All jokes aside, the only reason that you would probably not need renter's insurance is if 1, you have enough money to cover all of your things in the case that something does happen, or you don't have much to your name. You don't have many valuable items in your place, or maybe you keep them in a separate place. So you don't really need insurance for your personal belongings, and you will be paying a monthly balance for no reason, really, because you don't have much to cover. Now, you should get renter's insurance if one of the 4 options apply to you. 1, you're not made of money. 2, you have valuables such as computers, iPhones, TVs, laptops, things in your home that if they were to get damaged, you would prefer that an insurance company could step in and cover those things. 3, you like to be prepared. And like 77% of you sweet, sweet Americans, you don't have an emergency fund. So you're not really prepared just in case an emergency happens. So you'll probably be swimming up Schitt's Creek if something did happen. And 4, you like the word cheap because renter's insurance is pretty inexpensive depending on who you're speaking to. But according to the National Association for Insurance Commission, between renter's insurance is between $13 to $24 depending on your state, the company that you go with, policy conditions, things of that nature. So just read these lines just like this. Don't change anything. Okay. So I spend about $12 a month for renter's insurance with a $250 deductible, which covers about $5,000 worth of items. Wait, deductible? What do you mean I got a deduct? So sorry I had to see that. So it came as a surprise to me that I had to pay to use my insurance. So I thought that me paying each month was me paying for my insurance. But no, I was really paying for my insurance. Let me break it down for you. So your monthly installment, in my case, that's the $12. That is the amount that keeps your policy active and ready to be used in the case that you do file a claim. So your deductible is the amount that you have to come out of pocket when you file an insurance claim. Take this example. let's say you have a flood and it damages about $4,000 worth of things. If you have a $250 deductible, that means you only have to come out of pocket $250 and the insurance company will fill in for the rest. I'm a big fan of asking why, so here's why deductibles exist. Deductibles lower the insurance company's financial burden when in the case that you do file a claim, and inadvertently it makes you less reluctant, or actually more reluctant, to file a claim because you have to come out of pocket to some extent. Now, there are a couple ways to lower / eliminate this deductible. The way to eliminate it is to have no insurance policy at all. And if you can cover your own things, then that would be in your best interest. But if you would like to lower it, here are some ways you can do so. 1, diminishing deductibles. In this case, maybe an insurance company has a promotional advantage stating that if you have 1 full year of filing no claims at all, for that next year you get a lower deductible if you were to file a claim. The longer that you go without filing claims, the lower your deductible is when you do go to file a claim. 2, bundling. I know we've all heard those commercials. Bundle your home and auto and save $20 a month. That's bundling. So if you, let's say you have a fire in your house and it spreads to your car, don't ask me how that happened, but let's say it does. The deductible will apply to both of those policies. So let's say each policy has a $250 deductible. Because you bundled, you only spend $250 when you file your insurance claim rather than having to pay separate deductibles for each of those policies. So from $500 to only $250. And the last one, which is scheduled personal property. In this case, let's say you have expensive artwork or valuable jewelry. This will allow you to add an extension to your current insurance policy. So let's say you have renter's insurance and you have valuables. Your renter's insurance is usually capped off at a certain amount. So let's say it caps off at a loss of $5,000. If your valuables are worth much more than $5,000, you can do that add-on and they'll be individually appraised. So in that case, if something does happen to those things, you're covered for much more, and this can inadvertently lower your deductible. Now, it is important to note that since this is an add-on, it's probably going to incur more upfront costs than maybe, let's say, a regular policy, but you'll be able to cover a higher amount of your things and possibly pay much less when you do go to file a claim. Hey, so let's say you've decided to get renter's insurance. I'm happy for you. I'm no promoter or sponsor of any sort, but I'm just happy because you're prepared, so you ain't got to get prepared. What are some things that you should consider when deciding what type of policy to get? One thing to consider is, what are you getting coverage for? Do you have expensive items, expensive possessions, jewels in your possession? If that's the case, then maybe you should consider getting a scheduled personal property extension to your current policy. Let's say you don't have a lot of things to cover at all. This means that your coverage amount will be much lower, which inevitably lowers your monthly payment and your deductible when you do file a claim. Factor 2, kind of latching on to my previous point, is pricing. How much do you want to pay monthly for an insurance policy? Also, how much do you want to come out of pocket for if you do decide to file a claim? That should be considered when choosing a policy so that you can make sure that it's as reasonable and as practical as possible. And also try to, you're no fortune teller, but try to foresee the future. If you know that you are in a financial position right now that you may not be in 6 months, take that into consideration. One final factor that you might like to consider is this concept of actual cash value coverage versus replacement cost coverage. So actual cash value coverage considers time and depreciation in how much you're going to get when you file a claim. So let's say you have a computer that you bought 10 years ago, and at the time that you bought the computer, it was $1,000. with depreciation and depreciating value over time, that $1,000 computer is now maybe only worth $250 due to depreciation. However, with replacement cost coverage, this means that that $10,000 computer, I keep saying 10, that $1,000 computer that you bought 10 years ago is going to be based as if it was new. So your insurance company is going to pay the full value of what you paid when you originally bought it versus how much it would have depreciated over that 10-year span. So the next topic would be filing your claim. If you have an incident in your place, how would you go about filing a claim, and what does that process look like? That's going to be in a part 2 of this video, mostly because I feel like personal experience is more impactful, and because I haven't fully finished the process on my own, I want to wait so that I can give you my full experience and tips and tricks. All right, I'll catch y'all later.